Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith. This week we will be discussing the latest in the East Palestine train derailment. It's been more than a year since there was a controlled burn and release of toxic chemicals along the Ohio-Pennsylvania border. And it seems that lawmakers are still hearing from frustrated residents that things have only gotten worse, not better. Today to discuss this with us is Anthony Hennon, Pennsylvania reporter for the Center Square. So Anthony, tell us a little bit more about what lawmakers were hearing on Wednesday.
Yeah, so this was sort of a follow-up of sorts of a hearing the Senate Emergency Preparedness and Veterans Affairs Committee held last February, of just a few weeks after the derailment and then the chemical burn. Over the past year, as we've reported here, as well as other outlets, when you talk to people around East Palestine, you start to hear the same complaints of a lack of transparency, a lack of responsiveness from local, state, and federal officials. Really, you have to kind of pull teeth and nails to get anyone to come out and do testing or to meet some of their concerns. This hearing, it's basically been more of the same, unfortunately. Residents on both sides of the Ohio-Pennsylvania border are saying they feel abandoned, they feel forgotten, and basically discarded by legislators. One testifier, Sheila Stiegler, who's an organic farmer out in Lawrence County, a few miles away from East Palestine, said, "Our Pennsylvania constitutional rights were violated and continue to be violated. We are here with our expectations for our rights to be restored and upheld." She also referenced, calls of this derailment and the chemical burn is the Ohio Chernobyl. And, it's been frustrating. I think one resident out in Darlington, which is just right immediately on the border with Ohio, she told a story where she was having trouble of actually getting any testing because she's 3 miles away from East Palestine, whereas they were generally only mandating testing within a mile of the derailment site. So she told a story where she forced her way into a meeting with Governor Shapiro and told him that she couldn't get any agency to come out and test her soil. And it took Shapiro's office calling the EPA to actually get any testing done on her property. She said, "Nobody believes in the alphabet soup people because they don't follow through with what they say they're going to do anyhow, or you get the runaround." So, there's just still a lot of continuing anger, a lot of concern that they're not doing enough testing and that people's lives and people's health is being put at risk.
Speaking of people's health, she said that lab results that finally came after she pushed Shapiro to get her land tested showed some alarming results.
Yeah, she basically recounted elevated levels of benzene, of vinyl chloride, and other chemicals. This is the problem with basically any chemical spill, any disaster like this, is that you can't really prove causation because no one was, doing routine tests of vinyl chloride in the soil or in the air or within people, before it happened. And as another resident, Rick Sy, who's a chiropractor in Darlington, said, "Can you prove causation? No." And that's what these companies rely on. So it's very hard to really come in and scientifically say this is a result of the crash, but it's suspicious, I suppose you could, if you want to put it lightly. And that also has led to problems of when Norfolk Southern or when state and federal agencies do offer financial assistance or financial relief. The way it actually gets rolled out gets very complicated and frustrates locals because things are not exactly smooth, or they might receive something from one, then taken away from the other.
So what do lawmakers have to say about this?
Yeah, you heard from legislators basically echoing what they've said before, a lot of concern, a lot of frustration about how this has played out. Senator Doug Mastriano, who was hosting the meeting, said, this whole thing is gross negligence driven by greed and gross cover-up for the missteps and failure to declare an emergency. How many more lives need to be destroyed? How many decades and generations of people need to be poisoned with cancer because of this greed and negligence? And then the failure of government at all levels to do their job.
Anthony, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.
Are you tired of news that puts politics over people? At the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation, we believe in putting people over politics by delivering nonpartisan news and audio content that serves you, the American taxpayer. With Franklin News Foundation, you can read fact-based, state-focused news for free at thecentersquare.com. You can listen to civil, balanced conversations between policy experts through our podcast network at americastalking.com. Or you can get in-depth news on K-12 education spending, curriculum, and school safety at chalkboardnews.com. It's all free through Franklin, where we put you, the American taxpayer, first in every story, episode, and conversation. And it's only possible through our supporters. Together, we can produce content that puts people over politics and brings Americans the news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate. Once again, that's franklinnews.org/donate.